Starting the video off, we're going to be talking about pre-aiming. This is the most advanced way to get your targets in your crosshair without taking damage. You can see what I'm doing in the background is actually aiming down sights while I'm in cover behind my wall, and then I move right, and that way if my target was to appear behind his builds, my crosshair would already be lined up and I would have hit the first shot. And if he had a similar weapon to me, it means I would have done way more damage to him than he would have done to me. So target acquisition is the most important fundamental when it comes to long range aiming here in Fortnite Chapter 3. Basically, from the gameplay in the background, I'm a solo and I'm playing trios. So anybody that shoots me from behind, I have to assume they're a trio, and I do this perfectly from the clip in the background. What actually happens is I get shot in the back, and despite him having the advantage of doing damage, knowing exactly where I am, I was still able to establish high ground, build out of hard materials, find the target and eliminate the target all before his trio even shows up. And this puts you at a super advantage, especially when you're at a disadvantage like me playing as a solo when you're playing a game mode like trios. If you're struggling to hit shots like the ones I'm hitting in the background, all you need to do is master recoil control. It's simple to master it, but we're just going to replay this clip in slow motion while I explain this. You're going to notice that my crosshair actually just dwindles up and down. It doesn't fly up in the air and it doesn't go down super low. It kind of just stays level with a bit of a vibration. Now that is what you want to obtain. You want to actually focus on getting your crosshair to stay in the same place. And the reason why you want to do that is because that's actually how you're going to hit most of your shots. And what I've seen a lot of people do is overcompensate for recoil. So if you don't know, recoil on the MK7 assault rifle tries to go up. It vibrates its way up and then eventually off your target. But what a lot of people do is overcompensate from that, and they do that by moving their joystick down too aggressively or moving their mouse back too aggressively. And what that's doing is you're on target, you're vibrating like you're supposed to, then the gun all of a sudden goes out of control and starts pulling up. So people pull their stick or they pull their mouse back, and all of a sudden you're aiming at their toes or you're aiming at their legs, and that's just not where you want to be. So to practice that, I recommend going into the Skavok aim trainer or doing long range aim duels with you and a teammate where you guys are both on like unlimited health about 100 meters away from each other, and just keep practicing and doing that every day. Consistency is key. 15 minutes, 10 minutes every day is way more effective than an hour once or twice a week. Weapon awareness is something that everybody is lacking in Fortnite Chapter 3, and it's the ability to know what weapon is correct to use in a given scenario. For example, in the clip right now, you're going to notice me starting the fight off with an SMG because, you know, it's a spray weapon, it's going to do damage through builds. I get even closer to my opponent and hit him with a heavy shot from my striker, and then I just start tarping away. I let my teammate finish that fight up. But what I noticed is that out of the side of my ear, I heard someone using the web shooters, and that instantly sent a signal to my brain where it was like, okay, what's the best weapon to use in this scenario when somebody's webbing around the map? And it was like, okay, MK7. So you'll notice I actually swapped to my MK7 before I even know where the target is, and I start looking for him, so that way when I find him, I already have the right weapon equipped to deal with that scenario I was given. That is something that a lot of people are actually lacking with, and I recommend being subconscious of it and practice it every single time you can. In the background, there is another example of weapon analysis. Hint, look out for when the Travis Scott hits the pad and I swap to the MK7 assault rifle. That's when it occurs. Until then, I just want to make sure that everybody who's new to the channel hits that subscribe button if you're genuinely enjoying the content. On top of that, if we can hit 25 likes on this video, you can be expecting me to drop a full guide on how to achieve aim that I have. I have actually put a lot of hours into developing my aim, and I would like to share some of those tips with you. However, we got to hit that like goal first, so definitely drop a like. Back to the video. What you're witnessing on screen is something that not a lot of people have mastered, and I'm going to try and explain it as best as I can using my hand signals, and it's called crowd control. It's the ability to actually manage a full team when they're rushing at you. You're going to notice in the clip that I basically solo annihilate this team. I'm not discrediting my team. I'm sure they probably did stuff. What I was able to do was actually keep the whole opposition at bay. And I did this by not just focusing on one target. And this is what I mean when it's hard to master. It's almost like one eye is shooting at this guy, so you're focusing with one eye on that guy over there, and your other eye is waiting for somebody else to peek, and you just snap between all of them. So instead of hella focusing on one guy and melting him down to 1 HP, you know, you shoot him 3 or 4 times, you swap to his teammate, shoot him 3 or 4 times, swap back to him, and you're swapping between all these targets. So not only are you mastering flicks because you're flicking between targets, not only do you have to master recoil control, but you also have to master the ability of not getting shot while you're doing this, because obviously if there's 3 people's crosshairs all locked on you, it's very hard not to get hit. But I managed to not get hit in this clip and also pull a Spider-Man out of the sky by using some insane tracking. This just comes naturally as you practice with the MK7, but that's why it's the best gun in the game. What you're about to see on screen is probably my most proudest moment in Fortnite Chapter 3, and it's basically the ability of me putting every tip I've talked about in this video into one simple scenario. Essentially, a guy got rebooted, I ran over the hill, and I instantly looked for 2 targets, and I found both targets. I analyzed and used my weapon sense that I wanted to actually lock onto the guy that just got rebooted because he wasn't moving. If I waited a few seconds, he could have moved, and then I wouldn't have been able to hit him and kill him as easily. So I actually kill him straight away. He didn't even get to move a muscle. Then I locked onto the second opponent. Like I said, crowd control. Just because I was shooting at one guy doesn't mean that I didn't know where the second guy was. So essentially, one eye was looking at this guy, my other eye was looking at the next opponent to make sure he didn't pull out a sniper and try and snipe my head off. So then instantly, as that guy gets knocked, my crosshair swaps all the way over to the second opponent, and again, that flick is perfect, the tracking is perfect, the recoil control is perfect, and then I'm actually going to replay the clip in slow motion just so you guys can analyze it in your own way, because maybe I didn't break it down, the way you would like it to be broken down, but it's just super simple stuff. But when it's all applied into one scenario, it's so overpowered. So you might think flicking isn't that great, or tracking isn't that great, or that important to you, or even just peaks and weapon analysis and all stuffs like that isn't important. But when you roll it up into one kind of fighting scenario, you end up with something that just happened on screen, where I'm able to lock between targets like an absolute monster. This next technique is actually being slept on by a lot of top tier pros and a lot of ordinary players like you or me, and it's actually very, very overpowered, and I don't actually know how I discovered it. I guess I just looked over my gameplay and figured it out. But when you burst fire with the MK7 assault rifle, you'll find that you hit way more shots. Hear me out. I understand that the MK7 assault rifle has no bloom and it has one of the highest fire rates, so why shouldn't you spray with it? Here's where it actually makes sense. Because the gun wants to go up, and if you're shooting at somebody who's gliding in the sky like that, your bullets are going up like that, and there's a guy gliding by. And basically, I'm just going to show the clip on screen right now of me burst firing with the MK7 assault rifle and hitting nearly every shot, taking a guy from 200 HP all the way down to 33 HP. Basically, it's overpowered when you tap fire with the MK7 when there's guys gliding. I don't really recommend doing it any other time, but definitely do it when there's people gliding, because you're going to hit way more shots. So right now, I'm just going to leave this gameplay in the background as I talk about some general things that you should be applying to your game, to your practice methods, all sorts of stuff like that. And I'm going to start off for all my PC players out there. You should probably not practice in the likes of AimLab or Kovacs. Me personally, my aim has drastically improved, and I'm sure most of the people who watch me consistently will notice from the gameplay in this video that my aim is even better than it ever was. And the one thing that I've changed is that I've actually started aim training in this Gavok aim trainer and doing aim duels all inside of Fortnite. I don't use any aim trainers like Kovacs or AimLabs. I just don't. I really just prefer aiming in Fortnite. The reason for this is I find it more consistent. When you practice in the game, it's just something about it is more realistic. It's more transferable. So when I practice in creative, my actual skill can transform into arena. That's the thing that a lot of people struggle with, is practicing in creative and bringing those skills into actual games. That's something that a lot of people struggle with. I'll make a video on that in the future, but staying on the topic of aiming, close range aim with the SMGs is going to actually cost you a lot of fights in this season. The SMGs are the most overpowered weapons, and I recommend mastering them now before it's too late. We're getting, we probably already have it by the time this video comes out, but we're getting a mythic Stinger SMG. That's going to be the fastest SMG in the game. On top of that, we're going to be getting a mythic pistol, I believe. The mythic pistol has the fastest reload time in the game, I believe, of less than a second. I'm not even sure what specific time it is. All I got from the leak was that it's less of a second, and they're probably already in the game as this video is coming out, like I said. So I won't talk too much on that. I'll actually make a separate video explaining what you should be doing on them. Again, staying on the topic of aiming, shotgun aim. Shotgun aim is important in this season because the shotguns do terrible damage as it is. So if you already have bad aim on top of the shotguns being terrible, you can be expecting to hit a lot of 20s and 30s. And if you find yourself hitting 20s and 30s, it's because your aim is terrible, not because the shotguns are terrible. They are terrible, but that's not the reason why they're doing 20 and 30 damage. That's down to your aim. Personally, I like rocking the striker shotgun. I find it to be more consistent, and when you get into the habit of taking build fights over box fights, which I actually personally prefer in this season, and it actually directly improves your aim. Why? If you're in a box fight, it's a lot easier for someone to spray into your box with an SMG, finish you off with some sort of shotgun, and it's just over. Whereas if you build fight, you can go up a layer, down a layer, you can do retakes, and you can really evade your opponent, and that might just be what it needs. Like, you might be able to pop a guzzle juice and start cranking around, and by the time he actually finds you, you're all the way up to 100 HP from probably like 15 HP, and it's a lot harder for him to spray you with the SMG. And using the striker actually complements that playstyle, because the striker has more range than the auto shotgun. The crosshair is smaller, and if you ADS with this, or if you even slide with this shotgun, you're going to find yourself that the crosshair just shrinks a lot and you can do way more damage. On top of that, again, just the Skavok aim trainer is where I practice my shotgun aim. I practice all sorts of peeks, I practice all sorts of flicks, I practice literally everything in that map. And it's super consistent, especially when you're trying to use the MK7 assault rifle. Now, I won't have anything on screen right now, but this is another thing that I did to actually improve my tracking with the MK7 assault rifle. And this actually might be confusing a lot of you guys out there. You have two sensitivities, whether you play on controller or keyboard and mouse. But when you actually look at your sensitivities, you're going to notice that you have an aim down sight sensitivity and a scope sensitivity. The MK7 assault rifle actually runs off the scope sensitivity because it is a scoped weapon. It doesn't run off the same as the Ranger assault rifle, for example, because that has a crosshair, not a scope. So what you're going to notice, if you bounce between using those guns a lot, if your sensitivity is not the same, or even if it is the same, the guns will move at different paces because of the FOV. FOV affects sensitivity. So when you use something that's like super zoomed in and something that's not zoomed in, it's going to feel a bit weird and your sensitivity is going to be very jarring. So I actually decided to up my aim down sight scope sensitivity, so for the snipers and for the MK7, up to 60%. And I'm someone who usually plays on 24% at that. That's the max, between 20 to 30%. I've never gone higher than that in my life, but I've actually put it up to 60, somewhere in between there. If you guys want a settings video, let me know down below in the comments. I can make a settings video for both keyboard and controller. But with that said, there's not really much more to talk about in this video, so I hope you actually enjoyed this video. With that said, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, and this video on screen right now is drastically going to help you get more points in Arena.